To meet him, I want you to hear his story, his advice, and what could be done on the next Morton Downey Jr. show, which starts right now. Come on. We have your attention. This is an important show, please. Our guests on home base, I'll introduce as Rich Yezzo. Rich, how are you tonight?
No.
Rich is over here, I'm sorry. Rich Yezzo at the Loudmouth, and Howard Bentley, I beg your pardon, is on home base with me. And Tony, who is an AIDS patient and is dying of AIDS. And this is the toughest show I've ever done. Because Tony Downey is his last name, and that's not an accident. He's my brother. And I want to find out what got him to this point. I've known him all my life. Tony, let me just ask you a question. Tell me first about your lifestyle, all right? How did you get the disease?
From gay sex.
Gay sex. Do you know who gave it to you?
No.
So it wasn't monogamous sex?
No.
Were you monogamous at any point?
No.
No. Were you ever married?
Yes.
How many times?
Twice.
Do you think you were always gay?
Yes.
Why did you get married then?
To hide that fact.
What happened to your first wife on your honeymoon?
She was killed.
How was she killed?
Automobile accident.
Automobile accident. Did you have anal sex?
Yes.
Were you the... Oh, God. Were you the giver or the recipient?
Both.
Did you ever use a condom?
Sometimes.
How do you feel about the man who gave you sex? I mean, gave you AIDS. Could you forgive him?
Yes.
Do you think you've given anyone else AIDS?
I hope not.
Let me go...
Not since I have known. Okay, 4 years ago, you don't know this, 4 years ago, I was diagnosed as HIV positive. And for the next 3 years, I did nothing but drink and drug.
While you were drinking and while you were on drugs, did you still have sex?
Oh, sure. Anyone who
Why
is
did you
gay,
drink and take drugs?
Trying to hide it.
Huh?
Trying to hide it.
Trying to hide it, huh? Okay.
Did you know it?
Huh? No.
Okay. When did you find out?
Huh?
When did you find out?
I found out when you were in an alcohol treatment center.
That's right.
And treated for alcohol and drugs.
Right.
You had found it out 3 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You've had active AIDS now for quite a while. Let me go to Howard Bentley. Howard, how many times have you heard these stories?
This is like your brother?
Yeah.
Oh, thousands. Hundreds.
Rich, are you out there with me?
Yes,
Rich, you're at, if I believe, you're head of St. Clair's Hospital.
that's correct.
That is the largest AIDS hospital in the United States of America.
We have the largest AIDS treatment program in the United States. That's correct.
Are they walking out of your place? Are you curing them?
8 out of 10 admissions walk out. Yeah.
How long do they stay out when they walk out?
3, 4 years,
Then die?
eventually, yeah.
What do you treat them with in a place like that? And let me ask you, before I ask you what you treat them with, what is the makeup of the population of your AIDS patients? What percentage? I imagine it was a higher percentage gay at one point, and now it's starting to starting to proliferate through the entire population?
At the time when we opened up the Spelman Center, which was November of 1985, and again, St. Clair's is a general acute care hospital. Part of that hospital is the Spelman Center. When we opened up services to people with HIV disease, we were seeing mixes of about 70-30. 70% gay, bisexual men, 30% IV drug abusers, with a few percentage points on either end for children of people that are HIV positive.
Of that 30% that were drug users, what percentage of them were gay or bisexual?
Good question.
Did you ever try to find that out?
Always. It's very difficult to get accurate information. Like when we make that distinction, if the person happens to be both gay or bisexual and an IV drug abuser, we will put them into the gay or bisexual class, if you will, just to try to keep that distinction. But to get to the guts, the core of it's been extremely difficult to get accurate information. What we're seeing now in New York City is about a 50-50 split.
How do you treat them?
Well, actually what we do best is to treat the symptoms. If someone comes up with a particular opportunistic infection, whatever the particular infection is, our doctors, our physicians will treat that particular infection. We've had some success with AZT. All right,
some success, and yet I hear there are others who say AZT may be as bad as the disease later on down the line.
Well, we've had, again, I'm only talking from history of our particular center. We've been in operation since November of '85. And in early '86, when the drug was put into trials, and we were originally in those initial trials, and even just before those trials began, we were using it. The drug has, we feel, elongated life in some cases and improved the quality of life in some cases. But I'm talking about a population of about 10 to 15% of our total clinic population. All right, so
this is AZT. This is my brother's prescription. It's a month's supply. There's the pill.
That's about 2 weeks' supply.
2 weeks.
Week and a half, really.
Up to $1,500 a month for 2 bottles of this. I invited Burroughs Welcome to be on this program to find out how, in the name of Christ in heaven, that times 30 or 40 or 60 or 100 could be valuable, more valuable than gold. Much more valuable than gold.
Well, can I insert you just 1 second, a little further? That drug was developed, and while I talk to the benefit in some instances of use of that drug was developed on an NIH grant using tax dollars in 1966, 67.
So we, the taxpayers, paid for it. Paid for
but not for to be used with HIV, with relation to AIDS, to be used in relation to a cancer. So you're talking about in a prior tax year, if you're a business person, that they incurred this expense, wrote it off in those prior tax years, and now are claiming that the development costs are the reason for the high expense of that drug.
The Liberace syndrome. How many have really died from AIDS and we don't know about it? Stay with us. Okay. All right. We're going to examine further what we've started to talk about in the first segment of this program. For those of you who have just joined us, I'm not trying to be morbid. My brother Tony knew exactly what we were going to do on this show, and he decided it was time to come forward. He decided it was time for him and others like him to help people around this country who would listen, who would accept help. And maybe we can draw a diagram of what happens. I think he's gutsy as hell. How many of us, knowing, as we have from the previous history of this disease, that perhaps this is the one and only time he'll be on television, knowing that can smile and laugh and tell a joke and get along. Tony, let me ask you a question. I think it's important for people to understand, Howard, if you want to jump in here at any point, please do, to let people know how you recognized you may have AIDS, the symptoms. I know HIV told you that chances are someday you were going to have it, all right? Matter of fact, probably 99% you were going to have it, all right? What were the things that said to you, uh-oh, I'm in deep water here?
In the beginning,
Yeah.
it was the lifestyle I led with the drugs, the booze, getting drunk, knowing not who I had sex with or what, and finally taking the responsibility and saying I'd better get tested. And then once I did get tested, it blew me apart. And then I thought, well, I'll have to live with it.
Or
How am
die
I-
with
Or
it.
die with it. And how am I going to break this to my family? You know,
Well,
this
what'd
is
you do?
it's a disease that doesn't take. It doesn't play favorites. It just doesn't play favorites.
When you knew you had it actively, when you knew you were going into the ARC stage, all right, AIDS-related complex,
I started having night sweats. I started getting thrush,
what is thrush?
where your mouth, the interior of your mouth breaks out. Having severe diarrhea. There's all kinds of things with it. It's Howard.
Howard, are you an AIDS patient?
Yes. I discovered it. I was
Active AIDS?
diagnosed last year.
Active AIDS?
Yes. And prior to that, I'd spent about 2 years being quite ill with different things such as pneumonia and shingles and Epstein-Barr syndrome. And since I'm gay...
Epstein-Barr syndrome, now, I mean, isn't that like mononucleosis? Isn't all that part of the same family? It is, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Huh, okay.
At any rate, because I'd known some friends who had died from AIDS, I thought perhaps it could happen to me. Then I said, no, it could never happen to me. It doesn't happen to nice people. And so...
Are you gay?
Yes. And I finally took myself to a hospital, and the doctor said, are you gay? And I said, yes. And he said, then you have AIDS. And
You said you're gay, and then he said you have AIDS?
Yes. And that's...
What did you have if you weren't gay? A cold?
The thing I've just told you is true of almost everybody I've ever talked to who developed AIDS. That is to say, the treatment that we get in hospitals is quite harsh. Perhaps it's the best way to be...
Well, let me jump over here to Sal Catapano of the Catapano Clinic. Sal, when I was examining this and looking into it after my brother told me about what was going on 6 months ago, I was horrified to learn that the Center for Disease Control, all right, in Atlanta, has the wrong criteria for diagnosing AIDS patients. Are we getting false facts from the government?
Well, let's put it this way. It sure isn't clear. And I would say it is false. We don't know if there is a virus. We have never seen it. And the thing, I might jump around a little bit. When we're talking here, we started off with AZT. Now, let us just digress a little. If there is a possibility that there is no virus, what in the hell are we doing with AZT? It's supposed to be an antiviral, yet it's a chemotherapeutic drug. If all the AIDS patients have a low immune system, what the hell are we putting chemotherapy in there? We're not helping them. And yet you hear all this here bull, excuse me.
Wait a minute, you said AZT isn't helping us?
How long have you been on it, Tom?
I've been on it 6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
If you just go a little bit longer, I hate to say this to you, a little bit longer than what you're doing right now,
Yeah.
you're going to find a drastic about face. I've seen so many. I'm up to about close to 200 patients.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
I've seen patients that have been on it 2 years.
That's correct.
There's a
2
great
years. I have
possibility.
a friend who's been on it for 3 years, and he was dead when they put him on it. When I say dead, he had like days. So AZT, as far as I'm concerned, is the drug right now.
You have to speak that way right now. This is your experience.
That's right. And until something else comes along, I'll continue to use it.
Right. In your
And-
case, you're right to present it this way. But you do have other individuals who go on this medication. They get reactions in 3 weeks, reactions in 5 weeks. It so happens when we get them men beat the hell out with AZT. They had 2 or 3 so-called sarcomas. When they get through off this period of the AZT, you see sarcomas all over their body. It just pushes it out. Whatever the hell they're pushing out doesn't even look like sarcoma.
Rich, jump in here.
Well, you know, I'm having a great deal of difficulty with what you're purporting. The drug AZT has been useful in some instances of the virus, and they can identify the virus, and they have a confirmatory test for the virus. Not only a screening for antibodies, but they have a test to confirm the presence of the virus and in what amount. Okay, so I disagree with you very strongly on that. But in 20%, anywhere from 15 to 20% of people with HIV disease, the drug AZT is extremely useful, even considering the immorality of Burroughs Wellcome and the way they price fix this drug. Right? Leaving that aside, it has benefit, and I've seen benefit in our clinic.
But you're saying the presence of the virus. Did you see it? Did he see it? Did the whole world see this virus? We don't know what the hell we're talking about.
Can you explain to the audience what a Western blot test does?
Let me just say one thing. Do you know why the Western blot and the ELISA test was performed?
Please answer my question.
Wait a minute.
No, answer my question.
No, I'm not answering it. Because I don't think you know why this
What
test
does
was
ELISA
done.
test show?
It's measuring the amount of antibodies, is it not?
Correct.
What the hell antibodies are we measuring?
All right, and if somebody has a false positive reading or a false negative reading,
What do you mean by false positive?
a positive that may not be positive, although you're not going to agree with me because you don't believe that somebody can tell you
All right,
that
I'll
the
tell you,
virus
I'm going
is
to bring
present.
on a guest. I'm going to bring on a guest in just a moment. I want to go to some commercials. I'm going to bring on a guest. We'll get deeper into this situation. I want to go back to Tony, and I want you to take a break with me for a minute. Stand by.
Transportation for the Morton Downey Jr. Show, furnished by Redwood Limousine. When in New York, call 212-226-7665.
I gotta tell you, in all the years I've known my brother Tony, I didn't know he was this tough. I gotta ask you a really tough question. You're facing death now. You're here on your brother's television show, coming out for the first time for the world to see. Yeah. All right? Do you have any message to give to the world?
I'll have to think about that one for a little while.
Okay. Let me introduce you to a gentleman who is with us on stage right now. I'm going to introduce you to Peter Duesberg. Peter, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
He's a research scientist. He's been studying AIDS for 24 years. He says HIV, Rich, is not the cause. Explain that to me, pal.
Of AIDS. That's what I'm saying, yeah. It can't be the cause of AIDS because it doesn't do enough to kill a person.
What do you mean it doesn't do enough? HIV is not a powerful enough virus?
That's right, yeah. See,
How powerful is it?
Very little. It's unpowerful. It's a dud.
It's a what?
A dud.
It's a dud?
Yeah, it's a sleeping
Oh,
pill.
let me ask you a question. What if, I hate to be graphic,
Yeah.
Mom, take the little kids away from the TV set right now, please.
Yeah,
Let me go right to you.
yes,
What happens if some girl
yeah.
is having oral sex with some bisexual and she swallows? What happens?
Is she here?
Huh?
Is she here?
I really don't know. What happens if she's having sex with a bisexual who has HIV, all right, oral sex,
Yeah.
and she swallows his ejaculation?
I think the virus wouldn't do too well. The virus doesn't stand stomach acid well. It would completely annihilate the virus. The
Completely
virus,
annihilate.
see, as yet, only 1,300 women have contracted AIDS,
How they contract it?
presumably by sexual transmission, presumably. In 8 years, in a country that has 250 million people, speak 125 million women. That's 1,000 in 125 million in 8 years. that doesn't speak for a strong virus. If
Well-
you remember flu or polio or viral epidemics like that.
Well, what is this then? Well,
They
how
kill
do they get
people by the
AIDS?
thousands.
How do they get AIDS? Let's forget that and let's find out.
Yeah.
Give me some hard facts. Why the virus isn't the answer.
The virus doesn't do enough. See, viruses, when they do their thing,
Give me
which
some
is...
hard facts. It doesn't do
Well,
enough.
okay, I
how
tell
does
you
the
now.
AIDS come about?
I tell you now. See,
Okay.
when viruses do their thing, that is, when they cause a disease, they want to, their goal is to multiply. They use you as a resource to replicate in.
Okay.
You're food for them.
Okay.
So they do that best when they take much out of you, when they infect you, infiltrate you to a large degree,
Okay. What
infect a lot of cells.
infects someone who
All right.
has AIDS?
So
That's what I'm trying
when
to
you
find
get a
out.
disease from a virus, many of your cells are being killed or infected by that virus. That's why you suffer, because you're losing more cells than you can afford to lose and can replace. Now, the AIDS virus doesn't do that at all. It infects 1 in 10,000 or 100,000 cells, blood cells only, at any time, even when you're dying from the disease.
If the HIV isn't doing anything,
Yeah.
why the hell have 43,000 people died from AIDS?
That's what we have to find out.
Oh, you don't know.
Yes?
You
I
do
don't.
know.
I don't know.
You have an idea.
I can speculate.
You have a hypothesis.
I have speculations, yes.
Give me a speculation, because it seems to me that's all we're hearing.
Well, the one, yes. No, what I told you so far are facts. But the virus isn't doing anything, that's a fact. That's not a speculation. It's only infecting 1 in 100,000 cells. That's not enough to kill anybody. That's like
So
losing...
please,
Speculate.
tell me.
Please speculate.
Speculate.
All right? So I can only speculate with the epidemiologists. The epidemiologists have said risk behavior is what you have to avoid. And risk behavior includes what we heard earlier from your brother. That is...
Dear God, man, let me tell you, Peter, you've been studying this for 24 years, and this is what you come up with?
viruses. Viruses. I've been studying it.
Well, let me go to Sal. Sal, you've got another well, I don't mean crackpot theory. You got another theory, all right? Your theory is injecting patients with typhus. Now, what the hell
No,
is that? gonna do?
typhoid.
Typhoid.
Typhoid fever.
Infect them with
That's
typhoid
vaccine.
so they can really
Let
get
me
sick.
say one thing more. What does AID stand for? Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. Now, if your whole immune system is down, do you take another substance to tear it down more? What has happened here, you can have, you hate to use the word cofactor, but you got to realize one thing. If you start interviewing a lot of these AIDS patients, I asked them, how many times did you have syphilis? Well, I had it
Fortunately,
2
never.
times. How many times did you have gonorrhea? 11 times. One day, I'm sitting at the desk, and I said to the
You've met
first
someone who's
patient,
had syphilis twice and gonorrhea 11 times?
11 times.
Try not to introduce him to my daughter, will you?
But I want to tell you something, Mort. This is a gospel truth. And this is what's happening. We're in a damn era of a condition that we can't even cure even syphilis anymore. There isn't any antibiotics that are working
Let me
anymore.
ask you a question. I don't know if you guys remember at the end of the Vietnam War when the soldiers came back from Southeast Asia, we heard of a new gonorrhea and syphilis that was totally resistant to all the penicillins, all that. We heard that in 75, 76. Man, don't go with some chick who's going to give you that disease. You can't get rid of it. Boom, we've never heard of it again. What happened? Is it now disguised as AIDS?
Since then, it's been multiplying. It's way out of control. A person today goes to a physician, for example. Well, you know, I have gonorrhea. Or let's say syphilis, all right? Now,
Who says that, the patient?
a patient
All
says...
of a sudden he's a doctor?
Wait, no, wait a minute, Don, wait. A person comes in and all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, it comes over and says, I think I contracted...
Wait a minute, I asked you. The patient is saying this to the doctor, I have syphilis?
Well,
Are you gonna cure me?
No. What he says is, I think I have syphilis. I've been exposed.
The patient is a doctor.
I want to be protected, Don. I want to be protected. So the doctor right away, he'll probably take a blood analysis and send it off. What is happening today, even in the lab, you must realize it. These are these tests that most of the times are done by machines, number one.
Okay, let's get through this quickly. I'm really getting bored.
All right. Now, you go and have...
Doctor, I have a question. Dr. Duisberg, you mentioned...
Duisberg, sir, not doucheberg.
Duisberg. Dr. Duisberg, you mentioned... You mentioned the presence of a virus.
Yes.
Does this virus, whatever you want to call it, exist?
It exists.
Does
yes.
it exist?
It
This
exists.
man doesn't agree that it even exists. He
Peter.
says the virus doesn't even exist.
Peter, did you prove that
How
there
could
is
you
a
say that?
virus?
Well, there is enough evidence for that. I'm
No,
convinced
I'm
that it
asking,
exists.
did we
yes.
prove that there is a virus?
One can do that, yes.
One can do it.
Yeah.
Did the government do it as far as you're concerned?
Well, the government, I don't know whether they do that, but
I
sometimes...
mean, did they present it that is a genuine virus?
Peter, is there a scientific way to find out if the virus is there or not?
Yes, that
Okay.
exists, yeah. So there is a
That
virus.
is not the answer. The answer is I'm asking him, is there, did he see a virus?
Sal,
Get off
let me ask you a
first-
question.
first
Really,
step.
before we get this into a doctoral dissertation or something, it sounds to me what you're saying is if we can cure syphilis, we can cure AIDS.
That is right.
That's it?
It is almost 75% correct. And I would go as high as 80%.
Have you
because
cured them?
Well, we're at a position right now. What we do is we stimulate the immune system and bring it up to a certain point. Then the next thing we do, after about 20 or 30 treatments of the injection of typhoid, then we go ahead and we take them and we use 3 different shots of penicillin. It may be a case that we may have neurosyphilis. It's very hard to prove neurosyphilis, even if you do a spinal tap.
Neurosyphilis, of course, being what the great Caruso died from.
That is right.
Yeah.
Sal, let me tell you something. When I was tested for this disease, they ran syphilis tests. They did spinal taps. They did everything.
All negative.
All negative. No syphilis,
Perfect.
no gonorrhea.
Perfect to hide something.
So don't stand there and tell me AIDS is syphilis.
No, wait a minute. I did not.
Yeah,
Let me
yes,
just
yeah,
say
that's
one
what
thing.
it-
No,
that's
no,
what
we're
it
not
sounds like to
saying
me.
AIDS is syphilis. AIDS is
It's a high
acquired
form
immune
of syphilis? Is that what
deficiency
you're saying?
You were saying it's an acquired immune deficiency syndrome. We're not calling syphilis AIDS.
What are
we're
you calling
trying to
what are you
say
calling AIDS?
is- What we're trying
What
to
are you calling AIDS?
AIDS?
What are you calling AIDS?
AIDS is acquired immune deficiency syndrome.
Okay. Where does syphilis come in?
Let me ask you something. How did you get, if you want to say you have AIDS, how did you get AIDS?
Probably by being big.
That's right.
Right?
That's
Okay.
right. Do you realize today, when in the practice of homosexuality,
Wait a minute. Don't
Just a
bring
minute.
just
Let me get to the
not
point.
homosexuality.
To show- wait a minute.
Because this can hit you.
of course,
Yeah.
of course. What I'm trying to say, that we know...
And if he goes
that
to the
there's
wrong bars.
Wait a minute.
And he probably does.
When you have rectal sex,
Yeah.
the person who has syphilis here, who has been sloppy and not corrected his
You
condition...
don't have to have just
When he
rectal sex.
penetrates the other fella...
No, you
and
don't
drops
have to
the
have
load in
just
there, that's
rectal
secondary
sex.
syphilis.
Don't say you do. You don't live with it. I do.
You have to-
And I know how it happens.
It's communication between
It's
body fluid, my
communication.
friend.
The communication... What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
It's
What is
when the
communication?
body fluid of one person comes into contact with the body fluid of another person, and there's a high
does that
enough,
happen?
and there's a high enough inoculum, if I can use a scientific expression, to pass the virus, which does exist.
Now, Rich, I've heard just in the newspapers a couple of weeks ago, some wacko doctor says that saliva will cure AIDS. I mean, what do you do in the hospital? Spit in someone's mouth all day? Huh?
Someone thought that because of the inability to prove that through oral sex, for example, the virus is not transmitted, that saliva had some kind of an effect there. But if you think about it, if a person has a patent mouth, the mouth is intact, no lesions, no sores, the stomach itself is an acid base, there's no ulcer, there's no opening, you have a patent area. So you're not going to have communication, when I say bodily fluids, of blood and semen. I think the doctor will agree with me that there is the highest concentration of this virus in semen and in blood. There are less degrees in tears, not enough to cause an inoculum. Not enough to cause an inoculum.
Question. Maybe... It's a body fluid. You don't know what that is yet?
What is it made of? What is it made of?
The hell is this? Kindergarten 1 and 2? We'll be back in a second. Take a break. I want to come back here. Why Sal is trying to define what semen is, I want to come back to Reg. Reg, question, all right? I would guess that probably 99.99 and 0.9% of my audience are straight like myself. But what about if we have oral sex with a woman? Can we catch AIDS that way?
Again, I think that if you understand what risk behavior is and calling...
I know what I know what you're saying.
Calling it the
What, I got to wear a condom on my...
Well, the way to avoid contact with the virus is to avoid risk behavior, period. That's the only safe way to avoid contact with the virus.
Well, here I go into a lot of drinking.
That's right.
Let me, Tony, I asked my brother earlier, sitting here facing death, knowing this will probably be the last time he'll be on television, if you had a message for the world, knowing what you know now, and I know what a problem this must have been with you for you, the fact that you tried to get married twice so that your family would think that you were straight, not wanting anyone to know those things. I also now know of a story that happened to you when you were a youngster, that I won't...
Being raped?
Pardon me?
You're being raped?
This is not a show. You
The
tell it.
only message that I would like to give the world, this audience, is this. It's very simple. This is a disease none of you, that's right, none of you in this audience can run away from. None of you. It could hit your brother, your mother, your father, your sister, anyone in your family. It could even hit you. What we need is funding. We need the government, the United States government, to get honest.
You need Burroughs and Welcome to stop
And
raping the
any other.
taxpayers after we already paid for it. Let me ask you a question. You just brought up something that I just heard. You said you were raped as a youngster.
Right.
Is that what made you gay?
I believe so.
Do you believe gayness is acquired or you're born with it?
I think both.
Okay,
I think both.
I guess
It's-
I'll save that for another show because I'll tell you, son of a bitch, you're going to be back 1,000 times. You ain't dying! Now, I got to go back to Rich. Rich, 1979, 1,000 people had AIDS. No one gave a rat's snot ball, right?
Absolutely.
1982, you had more people with AIDS, maybe 10,000 people, 15,000. It was called Gay-Related Immune Deficiency, GRID, right? I know what it was called because I was on the air out in San Francisco and I was fighting when I heard about this GRID, and I fought to have all of the gay bathhouses closed, all right? I was run out of San Francisco on a rail because the bathhouses, the gay bathhouses, were owned by a very important California politician, right? Now, here we are, 1988, 43,000 people are already dead, fully 2/3 of the number of people who died in the Vietnam War, all right? And who really gives a who's doing something about it? I mean, we're the people, and granted, we don't like the lifestyle of a gay lifestyle, But they're our brothers, they're our sisters, they're Americans, and we're damn well going to do something for them. Why isn't it being done?
Absolutely, Kite. To answer that question, you got me taken back. There are a lot of people that care. The government cares. The fear that we have is that people are going to be throwing good money in the wrong direction. There are groups, Gay Men's Health Crisis, and again, it's not a gay disease. It's not an IV drug abuse disease.
It started off as a gay disease.
In our
minds, it started off as a gay disease.
No, boy, it's not a gay disease. It's not a gay disease. Right now...
Are you gay?
No, I am not.
Okay. All right.
Right now in Central Africa, you have a situation that in 3 or 4 years, 90% of that population is not going to be there. And
Where?
in about 15 Central Africa, right across the middle of Africa, you won't have a living human being there. Now, everybody in Central Africa
cover
is
Zimbabwe?
gay. Pardon me?
Does that cover Zimbabwe?
That's right. All right. This...
No, go ahead.
No, it's to categorize this disease. And the reason why a lot of us are refusing to call it AIDS any longer is because the prejudice that is levied against people. Because the biggest fear is once someone finds out that they have the disease, to drive them underground. Because they're afraid they're going to lose their house, they're afraid they're going to lose their insurance, they're afraid their family's going to throw them out. And we can't create that. The biggest thing we have to do is take care of people who get sick with HIV disease, the same way we do with cancer or any other disease.
I know exactly what you're saying, all right? Because when Peter Goldsmith, my senior segment producer, decided to ask my brother if he'd come on the show, and Tony agreed to come on the show and to reveal what has been revealed tonight, Tony, when he arrived here, said to me, my God, my house is for sale. Is this going to kill the sale of my house? Am I going to lose my insurance? Well, I don't know about his insurance, but if he does, I'll pay for it. And his house, I'll buy his house. But I imagine a lot of people are fearful of that, whether they're gay or anything else.
Mort, there's 1,500 people, as we're talking today, in New York City hospital beds, acutely ill with HIV disease now.
And by 1992, every hospital bed in the New York City area will be filled with acutely ill AIDS patients, and there will be no room for anyone else who's sick. What do we do about the other people?
Major problem. Major disaster. Major disaster already happening.
A disaster? What the hell are we going to do about it, Rich?
Well, we got to convince people like the state health commissioner in New York State and Jersey to make sure that we have ample space to take care of people who are getting ill. Not only people with HIV disease, but our elderly. Largest growing group of population in this country are people over 100.
So we're really
What's
decaying then, aren't we?
What does the state...
I tell you what, Tone, pardon me for just a second. Let me take a break for some commercial messages. I know you have some things you want to say. I want you to say them by all means. Please take a break, will you? Okay. You know, if the heart of America is big, it's big for all of us. If the mind of America is smart, it's smart because of all of us. It's not because of our government, because we're supposed to be that government. I want to talk to the audience, all right? This is, you know, that's my cop-out. I always turn to the audience, you at home, and these great folks who come here tonight. Sir, you're first up to bat. May I have your name?
Sure. I'm John Lauritsen. I'm a writer for the New York Native, or at least I have been for the last 2 years. Usually I'm in
The
market...
fact that you went on my show tonight might be the end of your job.
No, not there. We'll see. Let me say that I agree with Professor Duisberg. I've studied his articles quite thoroughly. I don't think we know what the cause of AIDS is. In fact, I think he's pretty well proved that whatever the cause is, it's not HIV. But if the people who believe HIV is the cause, I think they have a right to put forward their hypothesis. Most people don't know they never have published an article that gave the reasons why we should consider it proven HIV is the cause. I think they should and give all the evidence they could with references, and then there could be a genuine scientific debate there.
Would you tell my brother that he should get off AZT?
I would indeed. I have written 2 articles on AZT, and the main things that impress me here, this fits in with my background in survey research. I went through hundreds and hundreds of pages of FDA documents that were released under the Freedom of Information Act. And I came to the conclusion, which was absolutely rock solid, that the trials on which approval of the drug were based were fraudulent. Well, it's pretty well admitted, and NBC News then, a couple of months later, did their own investigation, and they checked me out. They found the same thing. The trials were supposed to be blinded, but they weren't. They became unblinded almost immediately, meaning patients knew what they were getting, and so did the doctors.
Tony's T cell count. All right,
Yeah.
you're familiar with T cells. For our audience, these gentlemen can explain it. I don't know what the hell it is. Tony's T cell count dropped just below 100. All right? Within a week after going on AZT, it was up to 122. All right, a 23% gain. What is that attributable to?
I could not say. It could be psychological. It could have been a pendulum swing or many things. But let me just finish. When I say
But if
that
you're wrong,
yeah.
will you go to his funeral and cry
Okay.
for him?
Yeah. When I say the trials are fraudulent, there's real solid basis for it. So when we know that the trials in which the drug was approved were fraudulent, that means it's not even legally being sold now. Now, they used bad data. The FDA investigator recommended an entire city be dropped from the study. They used this garbage. They used hundreds of patients. More than half of them had what they called violations of protocol, meaning they violated the rules of the study. And the FDA accepted all of this. It's what we would call garbage in research. They mixed it in with the good data. They never told the public that this had been done. And their reason was that it didn't influence the results much.
Well, let me tell you something
Yeah.
for just a second. Let me interrupt you for just a second. I have an acquaintance that we were doing some research with while we're getting ready to do the show. Where's that piece of paper I gave you, David? All right? Where they are buying drugs. And, Rich, I want you to hear this. Where those who are in the know in this community who have this disease are buying drugs in the underground, all right? They're buying them in the underground. Tony, I won't identify this because you come from the area where this is, all right? Where this pharmacy supposedly is. And the code word is, if you would like to be called when the order is shipped, please fill in your phone number, and we will say, this is blank, returning your call. That is a code word, at which point they will send underground drugs to you, not AZT, but supposedly you're ordering AZT, all right? Let me finish.
What drugs is it?
Let me finish, all right? This person that I'm referring to in our research, his friend had 10 days to live, was dying, all right? 10 days to live. They had made the funeral arrangements. No way. He messed his bed. He vomited. He had the carcinomas. He had the, what the hell that lung thing is. He had the whole bit. I asked today if his friend had died yet. He's been using this. He was shopping at the Riverside Mall. Shopping at the Riverside Mall. We'll be right back.
Some of the guests of the Morton Downey Jr. show stay at the Meadowlands Hilton Hotel.
Wish we had the time to go to everyone in the audience. I think we've heard a lot of information tonight, all right? I just want to say, this is my brother. I'm proud as hell of him. This is my audience. I'm proud as hell of you. And I hope you don't die. I love you, pal.
I love you.